Hi, and welcome back to class of Product Development and Entrepreneurship. I am Hitesh Raiyani, Assistant Professor at LJ Institute of Engineering and Technology. This is lecture 9, Case Study Like-Dislike Methods. So learning outcomes of this lecture is to learn the like-dislike methods of interview by considering the case. So let's start like-dislikes methods of interview by case study. So in previous lectures we learned the like-dislike methods, in which we learned the like-dislike forms, and here I also shows the like-dislike forms. The structure of like-dislike form is like this, and you can see that in the like-dislike forms there are the at top basic header information. In basic header information, the records of customer's name, customer's address, willing to do the follow, and the type of users. This all the basic information is recorded in the top basic header information. Also in this interviews names and date of interviews is recorded. If you look at the tag list like forms, there are first columns which is used to record the questions. So here the first columns is used to record the questions like typical uses, likes, dislikes, and suggested improvement. So this is the questions recorded in columns 1 in like dislike forms, and whatever the response of customers during the interview, that is nothing but the customer statement, and that is recorded in second column. So second column is used to record the actual customer statements, and this actual customer statements is recorded during the interviews, and after completions of interviews, whatever the recorded customer statement, that have to interpret it in the customer's need. So there are third column is the interpreted needs, and that third column is used to conversions of actual customer statements in a need. So there are third column is interpreted need, and there are fourth column is the importance. So during the interviews, so whatever the expressions of customers, that have to mention in the last column. So this is the basic structures of like dislikes forms, and this forms is used to collect the customers data during the interviews. So in these lectures we learn the like dislike methods by considering the case considering the case. So let's start the case study. So like dislike method case studies, and the first for the case studies, the problem definition. So what is the problem definition for the our case studies? Our problem definitions is the lack of current electric work to satisfy the demand of the young urban residents who want to suitably cook authentic Chinese food. So to cook the authentic Chinese food, there are the lack of current electric works in Chinese cook equipment. So here I considering the frying pan, electric frying pans, which is used to cook authentic Chinese foods, and the problem is the lack of electric works. So objectives of this case study is to redesign an electric work of frying pan. So objective is frying pan and electric work redesign. So as we know, whenever we have to redesign the existing product, we have to collect the customer's needs. And to collect the customer's need, here we consider it the tag list type methods. So let's consider the case studies according to the problem definitions, and for that consider the customers funds. So here I have to consider the customers, and how to record the customer's response in the like dislike methods or like dislike forms that we have to learn. So if you look at the like dislike forms, here I have to mention in first in top whatever the basic header information, that is customer data. Here the customer data is the electric work based on our case studies. And customer name is as consider area student, and address of customer is MIT. Willing to do the follow-up during the interviews, if customers want to follow up or not, that have to written. Here I have mentioned yes, so customers have to know is used to do the follow. And type of users, that is the college students. Also in basic informations, we have to write the interviews names. Here I also write XYZ and the date of interviews, that is 4 March to 2021. So if you look at the dislike forms, there are first column, that is the questions, and the first questions is the typical uses. So based on the first questions, typical uses, whatever the statements of customers that have to mention in the second columns. And for the typical uses, the customer statements is stir fry, steaming, frying, cooking pasta, and everyday cooking. So these are the customer statements against the typical uses. So next is likes. So next question is the likes. So based on the customers one, whatever the like statements of that customers that is mentioned in the second column. So against the likes questions, the customer statements is the non-sticky surface, size, can stand on its own, temperature response rate high, and depth of the dish. So this is the like statements of customers, and that have to mention in the second column. So this is the statements recorded during the interviews, and after completions of the interviews, we have to interpret that need. Sorry. So customer statements, first customer's like statement is the non-sticky surface, and interpreted need is the non-sticky surface. The expressions against this need is the for the customer is good. Second like statement is the size. So interpreted need is the compact size, and expressions of customer is good. Can stand on its own on like statement, and what is the need? Able to stand on its own. So it should be able to stand on its own. And the fourth like statement is the temperature response rate high. So whenever we have to cook the any Chinese food, so if there are high temperature response, so we can start our cooking as soon as possible. So there are interpreted need is the quick temperature response, and that is expressions is good. And depth, last is the depth of this, and the interpreted need is the deep size, and that should be deep size. So these are the like statements of customers which is recorded in second columns, and whatever the interpreted need of that against that like statement, that is mentioned in the third columns after completions of the interviews. Next is the dislikes statements. So third questions in like dislikes methods is the dislikes, and we have to mention the customers dislike statements against the dislike questions. So here in second columns I mentioned the dislike statements of customers, and that have to mention in during the interviews. So the first dislike statements of customer is the short code. So in existing pens there are short codes, and this is the dislike statement of customers. And the interpreted need of this dislike statement is the long extension code. So the need is what? Long extension code, and there must be required of long extension code. So that must is the expressions of customer. Second dislike statement that is mentioned in the second column is doesn't grip surface of table. So doesn't grip surface of tables means when the pen is moved when steering during the steering. So this is the statements, dislike statements, and interpreted need of this statement is the can grip the tabletop. So if there are grip in tabletop, so still can when we do during the steering, the pen cannot move. So that is the good. Third, next dislike statement is the entire assembly is too high or tall. So there must be the compact electric units, and that must be the good. And next is the handle are hard to grip. So the pen handle is the hard to grip. So interpreted need is against this dislike statement is handle are easy to grip. So there are expressions of customer is nice if the handle is easy to grip. And the next statements of dislike is the have to watch constantly. So whenever the cooking is doing, their need to watch continuously. So what is the interpreted need against this dislike statement? They are auto shut off. So whenever the cooking is done, then there must be the auto shut off, or where or certain temperature if reached, then there must be the auto shut off. So there doesn't require to watch constantly. So this is the interpreted need against the dislike statements. Next dislike statement is the temperature adjustment gets too high. So there there are adjustment of temperatures, the switch, or you can say the switch of adjustment temperature, and that switch gets too hot. So this is the dislike statements of customers, and the interpreted need of this statement is temperature switch is insulated from the heat. So if the temperature switch is insulated from heat, so that cannot get the hot, and we can easily operate it during the cooking. Expressions of customer is sued against this statement. And next dislike statement is the slide don't get as well. What? So slide, as we said, the pens, frying pans, there are bottom surface and the peripheral surface. So there are maybe not uniform distributions of temperatures. That is the dislike statements, and the interpreted need of this statement is constant temperature distribution. So there must be the constant temperature distributions, whether it is the peripheral surface or sides or bottoms. Expressions of customer is sued against this dislike. And next and last dislike statements of customer is afraid to get the bottom wet. So if bottom surface is wet, there are the afraid because it's electric frying pan. So the interpreted name is bottom is watertight, and it must be expressions of customer is the good. So this is the dislike or dislikes row in like dislikes forms, and here are the customer statements is recorded in second columns during the interviews, and after completions of interviews there must be the interpreted the need and that have to mention in the third columns. So next is in dislike dislike methods. Questions is suggested improvement. So last questions in like dislikes for methods is the suggested improvement. So during the interviews, what customer statements against the suggested improvement that have to mention in the second column. Sorry. And here the customer statements against the suggested improvements are retrievable code, better gripping bottoms, hold through the handles to breathe, make heating element casing flatter, so and maybe has ears on both sides. So in case of someone is lefty. So they have these are the suggestions which is given during the interviews by the customers. So this is the suggestions and that we have to implement in our product development or redesign of product. So these are the simplest methods of interviews to collecting the customers' data whenever we have developing the new products or developing the existing products. So in these lectures, we learn the like dislikes methods by considering the case studies. And so in this end of these lectures, we know that how to record the data of customers' need during the interviews. In our next lectures, we will learn the next methods of interviews. Thank you.